I want to start with a question that's going to feel personal, even though it's actually about a room. What if the problem is not you? What if the room you work in is doing exactly what it was designed to do, but what it was designed to do is not what your body needs? I'll be honest with you. After years of looking at workspaces, including my own, I've come to believe that most productivity content gets this part wrong on purpose. We keep trying to fix focus, sleep, energy, and performance with apps, routines, supplements, morning protocols, deep work systems, and discipline. And some of those things matter. I'm not here to tell you tools are useless. I'm not here to tell you discipline doesn't count. I'm definitely not here to turn your desk into a medical device. But if the atmosphere around you is sending the wrong signal all day, your biology has to negotiate with the room before it can even begin to negotiate with your goals. So in this episode, I want to show you one hidden layer of that signal. What if your desk is pointed in the wrong direction, and that small architectural mistake is quietly taxing your focus every single day? This is AtmosHacking, and the point is not decoration. The point is state design. There's a strange pattern in modern productivity culture that's bothered me for a long time. When people feel distracted, they almost never look at the room first. They look at themselves. They ask, "What's wrong with my discipline? Why can't I focus? Why am I tired again? Why do I keep reaching for coffee? Why do I need another app just to do the work I already know I need to do?" And then the spending begins. A better chair, a better keyboard, a better supplement, a better monitor, a better calendar, a better noise-canceling headset, a better focus stack. Sometimes those upgrades help. Sometimes. But there's one question almost nobody asks early enough. What is this room asking my body to become? Not what do I want to become, not what did I write in my planner, not what did I promise myself last night. What is this room asking my body to become every single hour I sit inside it? Because every room is an instruction. A dark room tells the body one thing, a harsh fluorescent room tells it another. A cluttered room asks the mind to keep scanning. A noisy room asks the nervous system to keep defending. A closed room with no view can make time itself feel heavier. A room with light, order, depth, air, and visual relief can make the same task feel less expensive. Not because the room is magic, because the room is input, and the body is always reading input. This is the mistake I want to challenge. We treat the environment as background, but the environment is not background. It is the signal. Let me ask you something directly. When was the last time you stood up from your desk and didn't feel some version of relief? If you have to think about it, that's information. That's the room talking. This matters especially in the places where we work, because work is not just a cognitive act, it's a state-dependent act. You don't write the same way when your body feels trapped. You don't make the same decisions when your eyes are fighting glare. You don't listen the same way when your back is tense and the room feels like a storage closet. You don't think the same way when the only thing in front of you is a wall that gives your attention nowhere to land. I want to be careful though, because this is exactly where bad takes get made. I'm not saying the room determines everything. That would be too simple. People still matter. Skill matters. Sleep matters. Food matters. Stress matters. Health matters. But the room can either lower the cost of entering a useful state or raise that cost quietly enough that you blame yourself for not getting there. This is why the desk matters. Not because the desk is special. The desk matters because the desk decides what your eyes meet first. And what your eyes meet first often becomes the opening instruction of the workday. Most people position a desk based on convenience. Where's the outlet? Where does the monitor fit? Where does the camera look okay? Where can I hide the mess? Where did the previous person put it? Those are real constraints, but convenience is not the same as signal design. Here's where I have to share an opinion. After looking at hundreds of home offices, I've come to think that desk orientation is one of the most underrated decisions in modern work. Not because there's a perfect direction, but because most desks were placed by accident, and accidents accumulate. Wall-facing, window-facing, side window, corner, doorway-facing, room floating. Every one of those choices sends a different instruction to your nervous system. Some of those instructions match the work you're trying to do. Most of them don't. The point is not that there's one right answer. The point is that desk orientation is not only furniture placement. It is attention architecture. A lot of people want a focus hack, but the first focus hack is often not a hack at all. It's removing unnecessary friction. And friction is rarely obvious. Sometimes it looks like a notification, sometimes a bad chair, sometimes a light that's slightly too cold at night, sometimes a window you can't see from the place where you spend 8 hours trying to think. That's why I want to be careful about the science here. There are studies and theories that suggest light, view, and contact with nature can matter for attention, sleep, mood, comfort, and performance. But the responsible version of this story is not, "Science proved your window will fix your life." That would be bad science and bad design. The responsible version is this: the built environment can shape conditions. Those conditions can influence state, and state can influence how expensive a task feels. That is the story worth understanding. One of the ideas often discussed in this field is something called attention restoration theory. The basic idea, associated with Stephen and Rachel Kaplan, is that directed attention, the kind you use when you force yourself to stay on task and ignore distractions, can become fatigued. Natural environments, or even certain views of nature, may invite a different kind of attention, something softer, less forced, less demanding. The theory does not say nature solves every attention problem. It does not say a plant on your desk is a treatment. It does not say every person responds the same way. What it says is that some environments may allow attention to recover because they engage the mind without demanding the same kind of effort. That distinction matters, because if your workspace gives you no recovery points, if every visual field is flat, cluttered, harsh, or demanding, your attention may be forced to work without small moments of release. And those small moments matter more than people think. Think about how you behave when you're stuck. You stop typing. You look away. You search for distance. You stare out the window. Not because you're lazy, but because your mind may be looking for a different load. That look away is not always avoidance. Sometimes it's regulation. There's also research around daylight, views, and workplace performance. Some findings are interesting, some are inconsistent, and that's exactly why we shouldn't exaggerate them. A summary published by Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory looked at studies of daylight and view in schools and offices. In one office study, better outdoor views were associated with better performance on certain cognitive tests. Workers with the best outdoor view scored about 10% better in a cognitive acuity test and 16% better in a memory test compared to workers with no view. But the same Berkeley summary also makes a point that, frankly, I respect more than the headline. Because the number of studies was small and the findings were inconsistent, no firm conclusions should be drawn yet. That's the kind of sentence I want this channel to be built on, because it doesn't destroy the idea. It protects the idea from becoming hype. The signal isn't window equals guaranteed performance. The signal is more like views, daylight, and visual connection may be part of the performance environment, but context matters a lot. And context is exactly what AtmosHacking cares about. There's another study worth looking at, published in 2020, that compared office workers in two environments with different daylight and view conditions. The optimized condition reported longer sleep duration, about 37 extra minutes per night, and higher scores on cognitive simulations meant to test higher-order decision-making. Now, before anyone uses that to sell you a window, I want to be transparent about something the headline version usually skips. That study had 30 participants, and it was funded in part by a company that sells the very kind of glass being tested. That doesn't make the result wrong. It makes it preliminary. The honest takeaway isn't, copy this and you'll get the same result. The honest takeaway is that the visual and lighting environment may be more connected to sleep, attention, and decision quality than most people assume. And if you work at a desk every day, that's not a small idea. Because your desk isn't just a surface, it's the cockpit of your attention. A cockpit is designed around signals. Pilots don't sit wherever the chair happens to fit. They face the instruments they need. They control the light. They reduce ambiguity. They organize the visual field. They make important things easy to see and unimportant things harder to interrupt. Most workspaces are not built that way. Most workspaces are accidents. A monitor here, a cable there, a lamp where it fit, a window ignored, a wall accepted. A pile of things that will be sorted later. A chair bought because it looked professional. A ring light placed for the camera and not for the body. Then we sit inside this accidental cockpit and wonder why the day feels harder than it should. This is where I want to give you a number that I'm using on purpose. The $3,000 idea. Now, I'm not saying moving a desk is literally worth $3,000. I'm not saying a window beats every tool, supplement, therapy, or professional intervention. That would be irresponsible. I'm using the number as a mirror. Because it's very easy to spend $3,000 trying to fix a state that the room keeps disturbing for free. A standing desk, a premium chair, a productivity course, a focus app, a supplement stack, a second monitor, another tool that promises to organize the chaos. Before any of that, there's a simpler question. Is the room working with you or against you? And the uncomfortable part is that most people genuinely don't know because they've never audited the room as a system. They've judged it as furniture, they've judged it as style, they've judged it as a background for video calls. They have not judged it as a sequence of signals. So let me turn the room into a system, a simple one: environment, signal, state, behavior. The environment is the physical facts: light, air, temperature, sound, layout, surfaces, clutter, view, screens, plants, doors, windows. The signal is what those facts tell your body: open or closed, safe or exposed, calm or urgent, stale or alive, trapped or supported. The state is what your body has to work from: alert, scattered, defensive, fatigued, curious, tense, focused, restored. And the behavior is what becomes easier from that state: writing or avoiding, thinking or scrolling, staying with the task or leaving the room. Most productivity advice begins at behavior. Wake up earlier, try harder, block the app, use the timer, make the checklist. AtmosHacking starts one layer deeper. What signal made that behavior more likely? This is where the window becomes interesting, because a window is not just a view, it's distance, it's time, it's movement, it's brightness, it's color temperature. It's a quiet reminder that the world is bigger than the task on your screen. For some people that helps, for others it distracts. For some rooms it creates glare, for some tasks it gives visual recovery. For some setups, a window behind the screen creates eye strain. For others, a side window is perfect. So the question is not whether every desk should face a window. The question is, where does your attention recover without leaving the work? That's a more useful question, because if the only place your mind can recover is by escaping into your phone, then the phone becomes the window. And that's dangerous. Not morally dangerous, mechanically dangerous. Because the phone doesn't only give your attention distance, it gives your attention novelty, reward, social information, threat, comparison, messages, offers, conflict, and unfinished loops. You looked away for a second of recovery, and the device handed you a new environment. Now your desk has to compete with the most engineered attention system in human history. A good workspace gives the mind a softer place to land before the phone becomes the default escape route. That might be a real window, or a side view, or a clean visual corridor, or a wall with a small point of natural texture. It might be a desk position that reduces glare and still gives peripheral access to daylight. This is why I keep saying desk direction isn't a universal rule. It's a diagnostic. Let me give you a practical way to think about the choices. There are 5 desk positions worth testing. Not buying. Testing. The wall-facing position can help when the task requires deep concentration and you're easily pulled out by movement. But it can also become mentally flat if the wall is too close, too blank, too dead. If your body starts to feel boxed in, the wall may be demanding too much directed attention without giving any recovery. The window-facing position can create openness, distance, and natural visual breaks. But if the window is too bright, the screen becomes harder to read. If the view is too active, it pulls you out of the task. If sun hits your eyes or monitor, the room is no longer helping, it's interrupting. The side window position is, for many people, the best compromise I've seen. The window becomes available without becoming the entire visual field. You get daylight and depth, and the screen stays readable. The room offers recovery without constantly inviting escape. The command position is one I personally underestimated for a long time. It's the position where you can see the entrance without sitting directly in the traffic path. Some people feel calmer when they're not surprised from behind. Others don't notice. But if you constantly feel interrupted, exposed, or quietly on alert, this matters more than people admit. And then there's the camera-first position, which I think is the modern trap. The desk is arranged to look good on video calls, but the body pays for it the rest of the day. The light is aimed at the face. The background is curated for an audience. The monitor is placed for the frame. The room becomes a stage before it becomes a workstation. That's not always wrong, but it needs to be a conscious trade-off, not a default. This is the hidden cost of remote work and creator work. We started designing rooms for cameras, but the camera is not the only user of that room. Your eyes are a user. Your posture is a user. Your nervous system is a user. Your evening recovery is a user. A room that looks good to an audience can still feel bad to the person living inside it. This is where I want to share what I really believe. The biggest mistake in modern workspace design is that it treats human state as an afterthought. We build the desk around equipment. We build the lighting around aesthetics. We build the background around identity. We build the schedule around productivity. Then we ask the human to adapt. But the human is not a plug-in. The human is the operating system. Or maybe more accurately, the room is one operating system and the body is another. When those two systems conflict, the user pays. That payment can look like fatigue, procrastination, irritability, the inability to start, leaving the room every hour, or needing stimulation just to stay with a normal task. That's not a diagnosis. It's not medicine. It's not a promise. It's a practical observation. When the room makes the desired state harder, the behavior gets more expensive. So what do you do with this? You run a desk audit, not a makeover, not a shopping spree, an audit. Question 1. What's the first thing my eyes meet when I sit down? Is it a wall, a window, a pile, a door, a cable mess, a reminder of unfinished work? The first visual contact of the workday is not neutral. Question 2. Where does my attention go when it needs a break? If the answer is always the phone, the room may not be offering enough recovery on its own. Question 3. Is the light helping me see or forcing me to fight? Glare, shadow, harsh contrast, poorly timed brightness. They all create subtle friction. You may not call it friction. You may call it, I just don't feel like working today. Question 4. Does the desk position make me feel trapped, exposed, distracted, or supported? Don't overthink the word feel. In design, felt experience is data. Not the only data, but data. Question 5, and this is the one I think matters most. What state does this position make easier? Not what state do you want. What state does this room make easier? That is the entire shift. Most people ask, how do I force myself to focus? AtmosHacking asks, how do I make focus less expensive to enter? Now there's a danger here, and I want to name it because I've seen it happen. Once people discover environmental design, they sometimes turn it into another obsession. They buy everything. They measure everything. They redesign everything. They wait for the perfect room before doing the work. That's just another trap. The goal is not to build a museum of productivity. The goal is to reduce unnecessary state friction. So start small. Move the desk for 1 week if you can, or rotate it temporarily, or test your working position for 2 different tasks. Or keep the desk where it is, but change what your eyes meet first. Reduce glare, add depth, create one visual recovery point, remove one source of visual noise. The test is simple. Do I enter the task with less resistance? Do I recover faster between blocks? Do I reach for the phone less? Do I feel less boxed in? These aren't clinical outcomes. They're design signals. And yes, sometimes the answer will be that the desk is fine. The problem is sleep, or workload, or unclear goals, or a business model that asks too much from one person, or a schedule that gives the body no chance. That's why I don't like simplistic biohacking content. It turns every variable into a miracle. AtmosHacking is different. We don't worship the variable. We read the system. In this system, the desk is a good starting point because it's visible, testable, and almost always overlooked. You don't need to believe in any of this. You can test it. That's the beauty of environmental design. The room gives feedback. If you change the desk orientation and nothing improves, you learn something. If you reduce glare and the work feels easier, you learn something. If facing the window distracts you, you learn something. If a side view helps you stay longer with the work, you learn something. If the camera first setup drains you, you learn something. The point is not to find the perfect rule. The point is to stop living inside an accidental room. Because your room is already training you. It's training your attention. It's training your posture. It's training your recovery. It's training what feels easy and what feels heavy. And the longer you live inside a signal, the more normal that signal begins to feel. That may be the single most important idea in this episode, and I want you to sit with it for a second. A bad room rarely feels dramatic, it just becomes normal. The slight heaviness becomes normal. The restless checking becomes normal. The bad light becomes normal. The shallow breathing becomes normal. The afternoon crash becomes normal. The resistance becomes normal. And once it becomes normal, you stop seeing the room. You start seeing yourself as the problem. That's the mistake I want this channel to challenge. Not by blaming the room for everything, but by refusing to blame the person before we audit the system. So here's what I'd ask of you. Before you buy the next focus tool, before you redesign your entire life, before you decide you're broken, look at the room, look at the desk, look at the window, look at the light, look at the first thing your eyes meet, look at the place your attention goes when it needs relief. Then ask the question, one more time, what is this room asking my body to become? If the answer is tense, trapped, scattered, sedated, defensive, or constantly interrupted, then the next productivity upgrade may not be another app. It may be a different signal. And sometimes, this is the part nobody monetizes. The most expensive upgrade is the one you don't need to buy. It's the one you can test with a desk move, a cleaner line of sight, a better relationship to the window, and a room that finally stops fighting the state you're trying to build. If you're still here, you're not the casual viewer. You're the kind of person who already understands that invisible systems shape visible results. Subscribe because this channel is about learning how to design those systems. And tell me in the comments, one room in your life that feels like it's working against you. Bedroom, office, kitchen, classroom, studio, workspace. I read those. They shape what we cover next. Because the room is not neutral. It's either supporting the state you want or asking your body to fight for it. Design the atmosphere. Change the state. I'm Andrew. I'll see you in the next one.